All right, let's get right into it. Welcome to this explainer. We usually think of sports as just a game, right? A fun, temporary distraction. But every now and then, a single match actually transcends the bounds of the pitch and rewrites history. Today, we are unpacking the 1954 FIFA World Cup Final, the legendary Miracle of Bern. As you'll see, we're going to explore how a mere 90 minutes of football literally shifted the political, social, and historical paths of two massive nations.
31. I really want you to just think about that number for a second. 31 consecutive games. That is how long the Hungarian national football team had gone completely unbeaten right before the '54 World Cup in Switzerland. For 5 straight years against the absolute best teams in the world, they just didn't lose. They were the reigning Olympic champions. They had just obliterated England 7-1 right before the tournament. I mean, they weren't just good. They were considered totally invincible.
All right, part one, the invincible Golden Team. So who were these guys? Hungary's legendary Golden Team, or the Mighty Magyars, were a really fascinating product of their environment. They were state-backed, full-time professionals. Back then, a lot of players globally still had day jobs, but not these guys. Most played for the Army Club Budapest Honvéd, or MTK Budapest, which, wild fact, was actually run by Hungary's secret police at the time. Because they trained together constantly, they developed this insane, almost telepathic chemistry on the pitch, led by absolute legends like Ferenc Puskás.
But it wasn't just raw talent. Under coach Gusztáv Sebes, they completely revolutionized football tactics. They took the rigid WM formation that everyone in Europe used and just flipped it on its head. They'd pull their center forward deep into the midfield, use a deep-lying playmaker, and even push fullbacks up to help with attacks. This fluid, constantly shifting positional play caused absolute chaos for opponents who were strictly used to rigid man-to-man marking.
Moving on to Section 2, the Underdog Challengers. Talk about a David and Goliath setup. The contrast here is just stark. On one side, you've got Hungary's full-time, state-backed machine riding a 31-game streak. On the other, West Germany, a squad of semi-pros. These were guys who were literally working second jobs or running small businesses just to pay the bills. Plus, because of World War II, Germany had been banned from FIFA until late 1950. They were completely unproven on the global stage, untested, and flying totally under the radar. And here is where it gets crazy. These two teams had actually already played each other earlier in this exact same tournament, and it was an absolute slaughter. Hungary crushed West Germany 8-3. But, and this is a big but, German coach Sepp Herberger was basically playing 4D chess. He purposefully rested his key players and played others out of position to hide his team's real strength for later. Although it is worth mentioning, Hungary's superstar Puskás actually suffered a hairline ankle fracture from a German tackle during that match, which set up some massive tension for the final. But as we get to the final, things surprisingly favored the underdog Germans off the pitch. The Hungarians were staying in a hotel right in the middle of Solothurn, and the night before the biggest match of their lives, a loud, chaotic village fair happens right outside their window until the early hours of the morning. Nobody slept. Meanwhile, the German team is chilling in the super tranquil lake town of Spies, totally unbothered, building this incredible camaraderie that people later called the Spirit of Spies.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Miracle in the Rain.
Game day arrives and the skies just open up. We're talking heavy rain, turning the pitch into an absolute mud pit. But for the Germans, this was a blessing. They called it Fritz Walter weather because their captain famously thrived in the rain. And they had a massive technological edge. A company called Adidas had equipped them with revolutionary new boots featuring screw-in studs. So while the Hungarians are slipping and sliding in the mud, the Germans just screwed in longer spikes and had perfect traction. A real game changer. The match itself was an absolute roller coaster. Even in the mud, Hungary comes out swinging. An injured Puskás scores in just 6 minutes. 2 minutes later, Sebor scores. Boom, it's 2-0 before 10 minutes have even passed. Everyone's thinking, okay, here we go, another blowout. But West Germany didn't fold. By minute 10, Morlock scores. Minute 18, Rahn ties it up. The invincible Hungarians were absolutely stunned. It stays locked at a tense 2-2 until the 84th minute when Helmut Rahn fakes out the defense and drills it home, sealing a completely unbelievable 3-2 victory for Germany. Now remember, it's 1954. TVs are super rare, so millions are glued to their radios to experience this drama. And the emotions on those broadcasts, total opposites.
For Hungary, commentators Jors Szepesi, the confident voice who had guided them through years of wins, is just shattered. As that final whistle blows and our 4-year streak dies, his voice literally cracks with despair. He tells the nation, "My tears are flowing, but believe me, the boys gave it all." Flip the dial over to the German broadcast, and it is just pure, unadulterated madness. When Rahn scores that winning goal, Herbert Zimmermann completely loses it on air, screaming, "Goal, goal, goal," and yelling out, "Call me crazy, call me mental. I believe also football laymen should have a heart." His unbridled joy perfectly captured the sheer shock of an entire country. Of course, an upset this massive doesn't happen without leaving behind a trail of drama. The controversies lasted for decades. Was there a foul on Germany's tying goal? Was Hungary's late equalizer actually offside? And then there were the doping rumors. Several German players got jaundice after the tournament, leading to unproven theories that they were unknowingly given Pervitin, a WW2 stimulant, instead of just vitamin C. Now, doping wasn't even technically illegal in football back in 1954 anyway, but people are literally still arguing about what happened in that locker room. All right, Section 4, Shockwaves Across 2 Nations. When that final whistle blew, the impact instantly exploded far past the borders of that Swiss stadium. In Hungary, the loss was a profound shock to the system. Hundreds of thousands of people flooded the streets of Budapest. And these weren't just angry sports fans. This spontaneous demonstration quickly morphed into protests against the communist authoritarian regime of Matyas Rákosi. The government had heavily used the Golden Team as propaganda. So when the team cracked, the public's pent-up political rage boiled right over. This match was a genuine catalyst. In fact, the Hungarian goalkeeper Gyula Grosic, who incredibly was temporarily placed under house arrest and accused of treason after the loss, later reflected on those protests. He said something really powerful. In those demonstrations, I believe, laid the seeds of the 1956 uprising. The deep anger from this football defeat literally helped plant the roots for the historic Hungarian Revolution just 2 years later.
Now, over in West Germany, it was the exact opposite, a total wave of euphoria. You have to remember the context here. This was a nation struggling deeply with its identity, carrying the immense guilt of World War II and facing a total lack of international recognition. Showing national pride was understandably tainted, but this miraculous win, it gave the German people a moment to finally celebrate together, sparking a desperately needed sense of regained pride and unity. It was such a big deal that historians actually view it as a massive psychological turning point. The historian Joachim Fest famously observed that the victory felt like a total liberation from the post-war years. He even went as far as to say July 4th, 1954 is in certain aspects the founding day of the German Republic. It was the very first time since the war that the German anthem was played at a global sporting event, making it a huge symbolic return to the international community. But here is my absolute favorite part of the whole story. Despite the insane competition on the pitch, and despite the wildly different political paths their countries took, the players themselves forged this incredible bond. For decades, surviving members of both the German and Hungarian teams reached right across the Iron Curtain to meet up and celebrate together. It was a genuine friendship built on deep mutual respect that completely defied their intense national rivalry. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. How exactly did 90 minutes of muddy football manage to help spark a revolution and heal a fractured nation? The Miracle of Bern wasn't just about goals or mud or fancy screw-in studs. It is an absolute testament to the unbelievable power of sports to not just reflect, but actually shape the course of human history. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and hey, keep questioning the history behind the game.